purging is at last at hand. The day of doom is here. All that is evil, all that are lies, your parents, your leaders, those who would call themselves your judges, those who have lied and corrupted the earth, they shall all be cleansed.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, whatever time you've tuned into Eurabiamania. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. And we've got a special guest with us today. Our regular guest and good friend Cleveland Blakemore has joined us once again. And we
I apologize for missing quite a few.
Hey, life happens, Cleveland.
Okay.
That no way around it. You know,
Right.
if you can't make it, we're a pretty relaxed act here, which is surprising given how given the doomful topics we talk about. But
Right.
and we have again, of course, Sir Ahnaf with us.
All right.
Good day, Sir Cleveland.
He's a Muslim terrorist.
But all right.
Good day to Sir Cleveland. Good day to Sir Kenaz. Yeah, morning for you gents, afternoon where I'm at. This was actually going to be a special episode. Sir Cleveland was sent some homework to do. We will now test him out on whether he's done the homework. So I sent him two papers. The first one was thesis. It's about lessons from the modern battlefield. So they look at Ukraine and Palestine, and they look at what America can learn from it. Plot twist, spoiler alert, there's not much America can learn because America is so fucking behind, it's not even... So some of the stuff they write, you won't even believe, right? That's the first thing. That's thesis, by the way, it's an American outfit, so it's not Russian or Chinese propaganda. The second paper I sent him was a GAO, Government Accountability Office.
Right.
It is about the various different weapon systems and what have you. Ground vehicles, whether it's combat or support, and the fact that these things cannot be replenished and rebuilt. I mean, Sir Cleveland should have read both papers, but one of the things that really, the 130-page report for GAO, and I think the thesis report is about 218 pages, but the 130-page report, Sir Cleveland, 92% of all ground combat vehicles now cannot run due to lack of spare parts. 80% of all ground support vehicles, so medical and all this other stuff, 80% cannot run due to spare parts. Folks, we are seeing the Soviet implosion, right? We're seeing the Soviet implosion, and it's much worse than the Soviet implosion because if you don't have, spare parts for your vehicles, that might seem like, oh, enough, that's just a military affair. Like, who cares about that? That's like fucking nerdy military stuff. Well, my friend, look, if you don't have spare parts for the military department, guess what? You're also not going to have spare parts for the civilian department. Aha. You see? These things
It's
are
all
transferable.
nerdy military stuff till the bullets start flying.
Yeah. Every time that you send me something enough, I have other sources of information to compare your sources with. And unfailingly, whether it's pleasant or not, yours are always more accurate. Yours are always closer to the truth, invariably. Whatever your motivation, and I suspect a lot of it's just trolling, the same as I do. You troll people, but the thing is, you're not really a master troll until you can troll people with the truth. And the truth about the American, you know what? Nothing has changed in 40 years. It was my last parting shot in the military to try to do something about vehicle availability. I wanted to, literally, I did it for spite. I wanted to leave a lasting impression that I was more competent than any of them. So I took responsibility in the motor pool for things that had nothing to do with my MOS and the way I conducted myself and comported my business there in order to bring vehicles online for a change showed that I was a really excellent troop. And I did it because after I was gone, I want them to look around in the motor pool and realize we now have 70% of vehicles online for the first time in my memory, all because of that. Well, I wasn't a private, I was a specialist when I got discharged. I wanted them to burn just like I'd put a dagger in them, thinking how damn good that soldier was. This isn't even his MOS, and he brought those vehicles online. They're combat ready. It it's it sounds on the outside like an unlikely story, but the truth is, I just took a bit of initiative. I literally stepped into the gap in a few more areas that there was no necessary ban on me getting involved, but I took initiative and got involved, and I developed a response pattern for the ordering of parts and the replacement of parts that they simply didn't care enough about their jobs to do. So the military, just as now, just like now, just like your report, the military would order parts, wait for the parts to arrive, forget to install the parts, re-record the vehicle with its defects and work orders without using the new parts to replace the defects. In time, the work orders would become obsolete, and they would have to find a way to dispose of the parts rather than admit they'd had them for 2 years and the vehicle was not running. And this sick cycle got so bad at Fort Bragg, they ended up having to bury vehicles and parts underground to hide them. So when I was at Fort Riley, Kansas, I developed a sprint response before there was such a word in IT. I developed a response where I ordered the part, I took responsibility to watch for it to come into the motor pool, and the day it arrived, I dropped everything I was doing. I approached strange units that didn't even know me and told them, listen, I just got a part that's been ordered for your vehicle so we can actually get it to run correctly. We'll fix it. And I'm going to skip lunch. If you'll let me, I've got experience with this. I know how to install it. So I'll slide under your vehicle right now and put it in. I'll open the engine and put it in right now with your people. And the general malaise was so bad. People were like, well, I mean, I don't know when we were going to get around to fixing our own vehicles. So if this weird private or specialist wants to do that, let him. We'd pop the hatch open, put the part in. Remember, this is not my MOS. I'm not trained in any of this. I'm not even supposed to be able to do any of this. We'd tighten that part down. I'd say, start her up. See if you can turn the engine over. And the personnel carrier for the first time in 4 years would come on and sound right, would run right. We'd drive around the motor pool a bit, and I'd tell him, all right, I'm going to register this vehicle as ready and active now. And I think there's 2 more parts that have become obvious. They need some maintenance or repairs. I'm going to write those down too. And people were never quite sure, who the hell is this guy? By what authority is he going around fixing stuff? And I did it all from spite. I wanted, when I got out of the military, I wanted them to know we did not deserve to kiss Private Blakemore on his ass. That's how good he was. That was my motivation, and I used to get a rosy glow thinking about all those vehicles up and running for the first time in years, all of them brought up to snuff on their work orders, and they would say that damn Private Blakemore was too good for us. He really was. He was too good for us. That was my motivation the whole time. You can imagine being that angry at people that would actually put a wind under your sails and motivate you to do these things. I did. People noted I'd already been talked to about an officer's commission, and that work that I did on getting the vehicle readiness, and what, even back then, it was a really sorry military where the vehicles were never really running. They were never running. There's just this eternal cycle of ordering parts, forgetting about the maintenance, forgetting about the work orders. And by the time the parts finally came in, they'd lied about the work, it recorded as completed. And in this manner, the ultimate outcome was exactly what you see in your report. No vehicles combat ready. No vehicles can pull out of the motor pool and attend a battle and actually function. So anyway, I thought that was really appropriate. The paper that you sent me was really appropriate because of that specific experience I had at the end, where I was trying to distinguish myself in a few things. And the weakest element 40 years ago was, what is the purpose of $1 billion of vehicles if they're always broke? They're not going to the battle anyway. If these things are ever called to perform, the reality is going to emerge that they're all junk. Most of them should have been junk back in Vietnam, but if you're not going to junk them, you have got to fix and maintain and repair them. And they never did. The whole 4 years I was in, it was a joke. And as bad as it was then, after reading your report, man, it is infinitely worse now. infinitely worse than
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was back then.
Well,
See,
we're getting ready to fight a war with Iran, and we're expecting that, like, we may have World War III break out, and we're going to be fighting a war with Russia. And I can't speak about what Russian material looks like, but I would bet that it's in better condition than American, like,
right.
supplies at this point.
I can tell you
We
one
don't
there's
have
another
the supplies to
fundamental.
fight one front war at this point.
right. You don't have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be an expert in military procurement, Kenaz. If you just trust your common sense and believe my account, you'll know that if it's all smoke and mirrors and nobody fixes their vehicles for 50 years, you can't expect that they're going to run. And I imagine that the Russians, having been through a lot since the collapse of the Soviet Union, I imagine they do repair their vehicles, and they've moved ahead. They've moved ahead in life. They now
Yeah,
have
yeah,
drones and
yeah.
automatic vehicles. And I'll
Well,
bet you
well, well,
they
we're
run
forgetting
too.
something. Exactly, exactly. But we're forgetting something. Like all of that is true, but we're forgetting something absolutely fundamental. Before large wars start, countries always have a lot of military equipment, or well, they're supposed to if they're competent, right?
Yeah.
When the war starts and they're interacting with the enemy on the battlefield, then that's where their civilian production and manufacturing comes in. A lot of it has to be converted into military stuff. And then they have to be like, all right, look, we have all this military equipment that doesn't fucking work. Now we have to make some new stuff, right? And Sir Malcolm Kayune, friend of the show, he's been on a few other podcasts, but he was talking about this the other day. He's like, well, look, you know, you start off the war with certain jets and tanks and other equipment, and you don't end the war with the same equipment. They get modified, they get tested, a lot of it fails, and then a few good things stand out, and then those things towards the end, like for example, the Sherman tank. Like if you told someone at the beginning of World War II, yeah, the Sherman's gonna dominate, even though it's this like small thing, which compared to the very impressive engineering feats by the Germans, it's going to win due to sheer volume and numbers, right? And so you can't figure these things out unless you actually fight on the battlefield.
Right.
America no longer has that ability because
No.
if, again, 80% of ground support vehicles, 92% of all ground combat vehicles, if all of that is unusable due to lack of spare parts, what that
Yeah.
means is the battlefield, the battle's going to start, the war's going to start. Let's say Venezuela and Iran kick off at around the same time. Your stuff's going to get attritioned and destroyed, and you no longer have any surplus or ability to make something new. So even if you get a bunch of data from all your nerds telling you, hey man, this is how the tank should be built. Hey man, this is how we should make the new drone. Hey man, this is how the new missile should be built. You're just going to look back at him with a dumbfounded expression on your face and be like, we're broke and we're out of material. That's literally what this
Yeah.
is, right? And that's why, like, when I say Soviet implosion, the Soviet implosion is going to look like a summer picnic compared to what America's going to go through, folks.
You're not the only person who said that. An awful lot of people have said that. The
Yeah.
Soviet collapse was nothing compared to the collapse of the U.S.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
well,
again, you have to build things. Like if you're not building things, right? Like if we take the Spenglerian metaphor of society as an organism, well, if you're not growing, then you're in senescence and you're contracting and you're dying, right? And so it's like, well, enough, we can build things and whatever the fuck, right? And Ukrainian lessons, right? Like one of the things that there was a fucking, I forget the name of the essay, but there was a thesis essay which basically said cheap drones have redefined cost curves, and if you have attritional swarms destroying tanks and denying air superiority, that's like a new vector of warfare. But the Gao report basically said, armies already spending billions sustaining Abrams tanks and Bradleys while depot overhauls are collapsing. By the way, the sustainment for those Abrams and Bradleys, those are things not being used by the Americans. They're being sent to Israel and they're being sent to Ukraine,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
put some salt on that them apples, right?
Even
And
if they
so it's
use
like,
the parts, the parts
yeah,
have gone to foreign countries. So the parts that were going to be requisitioned for our own vehicles, they're in the
yeah, yeah.
Ukraine with donated vehicles and donated parts that American soldiers will never see.
Bingo, bingo. And it's like, okay, well, a $5,000 quadcopter is killing a $10 million tank. But
Yeah.
bro, it's worse than that. It's killing a $10 million tank that you sent to Israel and fucking Ukraine, right? It's not a $10 million tank being used by the Americans. In that department, the procurement for that has already collapsed, right? Like a lot of these things, if you have like a fixed contract or whatever the fuck, and you're like, I'm gonna make this for like 15, 20 million unit price, right? And it's gonna be finished in like 8 years or whatever. If it's the government, if it's any of these defense contractors, given their track record, you got to double that by 16 years. And then you got to factor in inflation. Then you got to factor in economic factors and collapse and all these other things. Basically, it's not going to get built. It's
Yeah.
like, that's the situation you're in. Yeah.
Kenaz, I don't know if you saw, I did a short video, kind of personal, about the loss of the power to differentiate things on Voltco, which I associated with heavy metal poisoning in the brain. The loss of the ability to tell when something is real or illusionary, or whether you're just going through the motions or it's actually happened, that ability appears to go missing in more and more people. I'm sure if you went to the U.S. Army and asked them a spot audit on the spot, tell them, I want to see your training records for parade formation and marching. It's all mandatory for soldiers. They'd bring out all these record books and they'd show you on such and such a date, this and that happened. Our troops are properly trained in how to march, of course, and how to form in parades. And, when Trump did his little display there, it became obvious that the soldiers were so pathetic they can't even lift their knees. They can't lift their knees. They looked like a bunch of civilians who'd been grabbed off a street corner 10 minutes before the parade started, and that was their attempt to march. They didn't have even basic soldiering skills. Their performance was so dismal, it was enough to make you feel sick in the stomach to watch them. And again, there's these check boxes on paperwork that have been filled out that say they know how to march. And there's probably check boxes that say, yes, the vehicles are ready to deploy to combat. But the difference between perception, this illusion that things are okay, and the reality, which you just said, 90% of the vehicles are out of commission. I mean, this becomes really scary. It like borders on a mass insanity or group insanity. And if the personnel carriers can't even make it from dry dock to be loaded onto the ships to go to another country, they won't run that far without breaking down. And we don't have any rail systems to transport our vehicles, as Ahnaf has suggested. I mean, do we really have any military at all? Does it even exist? If all of these things are only on paper.
Basically, what's happening right now is there's a bunch of these speedboats near Venezuela, and it's like fishermen. It's not fucking drug people, right? Trump is blowing them up, obviously. No evidence whatsoever. He's killing a bunch of fishermen off the coast of Venezuela, and he's saying, see, every boat carries like drugs on them, and we're like killing these guys, right? And like, I think 20 hours ago, let me see, Washington and AP. Trump declares drug cartels in Caribbean unlawful combatants and says America is now in a, quote, non-international armed conflict, unquote. So that's the thing. It's like they're trying to redo the Iraq war formula. You're going to pick some quote unquote rinky dink nation and try to beat them up with like overwhelming air superiority, which again, America doesn't have, but it thinks it has. And, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be like, well, enough. You're wrong because look, Americans are bombing women and kids from, up in the sky, and look at all the fucking, drug cartel leaders we're killing. I'm like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Like, he's killing civilian fishermen because that's all he can do left, man. He can't even fucking fight Iran, right? Iran and Russia, right?
Yeah.
Iran and Russia, if you wanted to compare Iran and Russia, let's say you only looked at conventional abilities, right?
Yeah.
Iran is about, I'm going to say, 70-80% of Russia's strength. If you set Russia to a 1, Iran would be 70-80%. China is actually nearly, I wouldn't say an order of magnitude, but 4 or 5 times stronger than Russia. I mean, if you can't even like fight Iran, and all you can do is like, yeah, we're gonna support Israel, and they're in their fight against Iran, I'm like, you've already fucking lost, man. Like this morning, right? Just this morning, and I can tell you this because I follow a bunch of these like OSINT accounts. Not all of them are reputable. Some of them you take with a big grain of salt. But like, these guys are just flat out saying that multiple sorties, right? So yeah, Russian military cargo aircraft keep entering Iran nonstop from different directions and countries, right? I can send you guys some maps and stuff, but basically it looks like they're about to start fighting, right? Within the next few days or so. Yeah. Russian Air Force cargo planes. So there's a few coming from the Armenian direction. There's a few coming from I'm gonna say Kazakhstan, Central Asia direction. Yeah, I mean, this started maybe 4 or 5 hours ago. This is gonna happen for the next 24 hours, folks. I mean, Iran is probably getting all the Russian hardware now, right? Because they expect some kind of conflagration with Israel and America to commence immediately. That's option one. Option two is they see signs of that about to erupt, and then they will do a preemptive strike on Israel and America and what have you, right? And so this is where like the other thing ties in of like I think 72 hours ago or something, Trump signed. By the way, this is illegal. He can't do this, right? But he signed an executive order saying America is now in a mutual defense pact with Qatar. Any attack on Qatar will be considered an attack on the American homeland. And I just laughed when I saw it. I'm like, bro, you don't care about Qatar. What you care about is Al Udeid Air Base, right? Which is like the HQ of CENTCOM, which, by the way, folks, is like, I'm going to say 200 miles away from Iran. Bro, if he shoots the missile at you, you got 90 seconds. You can't even do anything.
Yeah.
It's just funny to watch, man. It's funny to watch. It's like, no, enough. No, Iran is a pussy. Iran is a cuck.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the missiles are 90 seconds away. The missiles won't hit because they're a bunch of black and brown Untermensch weapon. Missiles never hit. And even if they do hit, Iran is going to pussy out and cuck out because Trump signed the executive order. So it's like different levels of cope. Cope number one, missiles don't work. They're black and brown people weapons. Cope number two, well, even if they do work, Iran's going to pussy and cuck out, right? Because of this executive order. And cope number three, we got hit and hundreds and thousands of Americans are dead. Well, we're going to win the war because we're America. That's all they got left, man. That's all they got left. And you got all the empirical data showing this war, they can't even make their equipment anymore. If it gets even slightly industrial, it's a fucking circus, folks. It's a fucking circus.
Yeah. Ahnaf, you are an enthusiast on the internet, and in comparing yours with these general reports, I have to say you appear to be more accurate than the general chiefs of staff of the U.S. Army, of their generals. So they're either lying or they themselves are deluded. But the fact is, as a layman, an enthusiast on the internet who appears to be able to source this information with all their staff and financing, these actual military people who are employed professionally.
Well, Sir
they're
Cleveland,
not
we're in
raising
the
this.
same line of work.
Yeah.
I mean, Sir Cleveland, we're in the same line of work. So I wouldn't say I'm a full hobbyist, right?
Right.
So you and I, we've actually worked in the same line of work. So I
Right.
gotta
But
just
do,
make a
do you
slight
have
correction.
access? Do you have access to the military institutions in the U.S.? I would say no. I would say you source them from the outside, and yet
Oh, I do.
your
Certainly I do.
information
Yes.
is more accurate than theirs. They lie and say their vehicles are ready to go. And with this internal report, it's obvious that these generals are all just faffing and blowing smoke. They just
yeah.
keep an illusion going until they can retire. But
Yeah.
in the end, the people who will pay are the U.S. troops who will show up to a battle where their guns don't fire, their vehicles don't run, and it all turns out to be junk. I heard a lot of the stuff they gave to the Ukraine was more of a drill than it was an honest devotion of a military initiative. They wanted to find out if some of those weapons they gave to Ukraine would even work, and some of them didn't. They're just junk. They're actually holding the Ukrainians back by trying to use this equipment. A lot of it is not properly debugged, doesn't have a safety record or a performance record that justifies putting them into combat. And the Ukraine made a great excuse to give them this junk rather than have the American people find out, all of that crap like the Bradley fighting vehicle, that doesn't even work. It never worked. So we'll give it to the Ukraine, and it's a good write-off. And the American people don't have to find out, we got countless billions spent on the Zumwalt destroyer, and the Bradley fighting vehicle. And all this
I mean,
stuff
Sir
is just metal
Cleveland.
scrap.
Sir Cleveland, Sir Cleveland, you can massacre women and kids who have no air defenses, and you can massacre fishermen who are like trying to, fish for a living. Like you can do that shit. And for a while, like you can fool everyone. You can do that for a while,
That's
and
what
you can
they've been
fool
doing.
everyone and say, "Oh, America is the best thing ever since sliced bread. Look at all the fucking black and brown Untermensch we're killing, right?" And like, you can only do that for so long, folks. Right?
They'll target a guy in a white van in the Middle East with a smart bomb from orbit. And you think, so you fight a guy in a civilian van, white van, with, $1 billion worth of hardware it takes just to kill that guy. You capture it on video and you act like that's a great victory. How is killing unarmed people from the air with, you need orbital support for what? Like it's five guys in the van? And America's
Yeah,
been broadcasting this stuff for years and telling people this is proof that we are getting our dollars worth for our
yeah.
military hardware. So it costs
Oh yeah.
$1 billion to fight some guys in a van from the air where you don't have to engage with them. And I think very soon the American public, who are the last to know, are going to realize it was always smoke and mirrors. None of it was ever real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it really depends. I mean, a lot of these things are event driven. So again, we don't know. Like maybe the Israelis do try and attempt another surprise attack, in which case the Americans are drawn in this time,
Yeah.
or the Iranians do a surprise attack, or maybe it's gonna erupt in Venezuela, or maybe both of them happen at the same time. But at this point, I don't believe that there's gonna be a war against China. And the reason I don't believe that is because in the quote unquote 12-day war against Iran, right?
Yeah.
America used up 25%, right? One quarter of all of its THAAD, interceptors ever built, right? If you actually look at the production numbers for that thing, it's only about 1,000 interceptors, right? Due to inflation and lack of procurement and all these other things, the unit cost is 14, 15 million a piece for that thing. If you ask any of these defense people how long will it take, they're going to be like, oh, 8 to 10 years to replenish everything. Again, multiplied by two because of economic implosion and all these other factors. It's never going to get replaced, right? Basically, long story short. So, okay,
I
we
learned
use.
about that from you enough. And
Oh,
when
yeah,
I first began to do some research on my own, I thought that must be surplus or excess. I mean, that
yeah,
would be crazy if they sent them all the missiles they had. They
yeah.
did. And
They
now I'm
did. Yep.
replenishing them. I mean, what kind of a military planner says, yeah, give them everything and we'll make
Oh, the
some more
Israelis asked
someday?
Sir
Yeah.
Cleveland. The Israelis asked for it. So, America, the good guy, has to send all the interceptors over, right? And that's what happened. It's like, okay, we used up 25% of all our interceptors. What
Yeah.
were the Iranians doing? Well, every 4 hours they were firing 6 missiles at a time, 5, 6 missiles. We are firing 4, 5, 6 interceptors for each missile, and we did this for 12 whole days. And because of that, we ran out of like, bro, it's he can't even fight China, right? Iran has the second largest mid-range ballistic missile arsenal in the entire world, right? It it
Yeah.
it numbers in the thousands, some say tens of thousands, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, they used up less than, I'm gonna say, 500, 400. They used a few hundred, man, and America ran out. So it's like, yeah. So what? The remaining 50 to 75%. Good luck,
Yeah.
folks, because when you run out of that, Iran's gonna be like, all right, time to put pedal to the metal. And this is the thing, it's like the Israelis only have really one big urban area, Tel Aviv. You can add in Haifa if you want to, but Jerusalem and these places, so 1, 2, 3, you can say two and a half, three urban centers. Iran is a vast country with 92.5 million people, right?
Yeah.
If you fire missiles at Isfahan, which has 4 million people and has a population density of 1,000 people, you're going to kill people, man, just because of population density, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that, oh, whatchamacallit, if we just kill 50,000 Iranians, the pussies will, finally realize the might of America and Israel, and they'll stop doing this like missile. Like, buddy, if you kill 50,000 Iranians, right, which America can do using chemical weapons and the usual shit against civilians and what have you, right? They're just gonna get more pissed at you. they'll just fire back more missiles at you, right? And that's the thing. It's like all of the things that America has right now is being cannibalized and
Yeah.
moved to the Caribbean. I think, like, Sir Cleveland, I sent you that number, but 1/6 to 1/5 of the entire American fleet is now parked in the Caribbean, right?
Yeah.
And this is not against like a mighty country like Russia or China or whatever. No, this is like against a 30 million people country, Venezuela. It's about 50% larger than Ukraine. It's got 3 times as many jungles as Vietnam, right? It's got a decent military, I guess, but it's got a bunch of like these speedboats imported from Iran and a bunch of these like ASBMs from like Russia and China. That's all they got. Like, this is not like a formidable, oh my gosh, world-class military, 70, 80% the strength of Russia. No, man. It's probably half the strength of the Iranians. Half, maybe 2/3 the strength of the Iranians. That's what you're dealing with. And what's the Americans doing? The Americans are using their fleet for this guy, right? You're not going to be fighting China. You're not going to be fighting Russia. You're going to be fighting Venezuela, and Iran, and I guess some other guy.
Well,
For
they
all these
did.
years,
That's
I've
yeah,
feared that the outbreak of World War III is going to begin over Taiwan. For many years, I've thought that's how it'll start. But
yeah,
nowadays, I have to say, I think the invasion of Taiwan by the Chinese will officially signal the permanent end of the world empire of America because I suspect more and more they're not going to do anything. They're going to let them have it.
They
And people
can't
are
yeah,
do
going to
anything.
realize they cannot extend force at a distance. They can no longer project force and control territories that they're not on, which is generally the end of empire when that happens. So I wouldn't be shocked if in the near future China's going to take Taiwan and America's going to try to pretend that they were going to give it away no matter what anyway, when in fact the plan always was to defend it. That's what empires do. They defend territory around the world, but I don't
bingo.
think America's in any shape to
I
fight over
I think
Taiwan.
American military officials have admitted we can't win a war with China in the South China Sea. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
even, there is no way.
yeah.
If we get into that war, we're going to be replaying World War II again, only
Yeah.
this time we're the Japanese.
They pay
We
for the
got
best
weapons.
simulations in the world, best simulation they could afford in the world. And every simulation, they always lose Taiwan and they'll lose a war in the South Sea. It's not even worth fighting because their prospects are so grim that all they're guaranteed to do is lose more hardware and people if they tried to fight it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's funny, that's again the late stage of the Roman Empire as they start
Yeah,
realizing, okay, we can't hold Western Europe.
right. And they
This
begin
is us.
drawing, they
We
draw
can't hold.
lines and say, okay, if we back
So,
up
so
to
Kenaz,
here,
so, so Kenaz, so
yeah,
Kenaz, there's drones right now. There's drones hovering over Denmark, over Norway, over Germany, over
yeah,
France, over all these places. And not
yeah,
just like, oh, it's a bunch of hobbyist drones. No, it's like actual military state
yeah.
actors are using these drones.
I
You know,
heard
the
about those
authorities, the
enough.
police. Have,
I heard
yeah,
they're over
and
Germany. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're
Do you know why
flying.
they're flying drone? Yeah, they're flying drones because they want to do reconnaissance, right? They want to
yeah,
give the exact coordinates for their fucking missile, and the
yep,
missile is going to hit your airport, man. That's what they're
yeah,
looking. The drones are not there to send you a bunch of flowers, man. The
yeah.
drones are there to do reconnaissance by force. That's what's going on here.
But the Western world, like a senile old man, is getting ready to fight with their ICBMs. And they don't know. Sorry, the party moved on. Decades ago,
Yeah,
the drone has long replaced interballistic missiles. It's just ridiculous. The drones can be there in 10, 15 minutes. And the reconnaissance that you can do, you can have pinpointing of incoming missiles. Literally, you can have that missile hit a dime if it needs to. And the Western
yeah,
world, they're thinking, well, let us gear up our ICBM silos and see if we can counterattack. And nah, nah, nah. That stuff ended a long time ago. They slept through it.
Yeah, I
oh yeah,
mean,
oh yeah.
there's no we're NATO, the way I put it in another episode is, Vladimir Putin has hopped up onto NATO's desk and dunked his balls in their coffee. And what they're doing is they're saying, good sir, that's rude. We're issuing a strongly
Yeah,
worded declaration about this.
yeah,
I mean, we're not going, what was it like? What's the article? We're not going to enforce Article 8. I mean, what you're just saying is we will let Russia fly drones and all we'll do is
Denmark
make
said that.
noises.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Denmark, Norway hasn't said anything yet, but Denmark had a bunch of drones near their airport, near their main power plant, near multiple strategic sites, civilian and military. They invoked Article 4. Article 4 just means you're going to do consultations with the other NATO members on what to do next. And then they said that, oh, we did the consultations and we decided not to do Article 5. Meanwhile, this is 45 minutes ago. Breaking news. Okay. Russian Air Force cargo planes continue to land en masse in Iran. Some planes are coming from the Irkutsk plant in Siberia, where Su-30s are manufactured en masse. So Iran is getting the jets, man. I mean, this looks like, well, we are getting ready for round 2 of the boxing match, right? And meanwhile, the drones are flying over. Like, if it comes down to it, man, Russia will fire those missiles and do deep strikes. I don't believe Russia is going to, you know, run the tanks across the border, head into Romania, Poland, or whatever the fuck. I think what they're gonna do
yeah,
is much more meaningful, which is like, oh, America, you know that You know that base you have in Germany? What was that called? Oh yeah, Ramstein. Ramstein, you should probably look out the window, or you should probably check your phone and see what actually happened to Ramstein 5 minutes ago. We gave you a nice birthday present.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what's happening, it's what you said, if a thing breaks out on two fronts. The fact is if a war breaks out on any front with the United States, it's going to break on all fronts, because they're like, the people are going to realize, I mean, Putin's already realized this. America is overextended. Europe has no military worth speaking of. We can do this because we could fly over. They would not have done this in the 80s because they would have been concerned, this might trigger a war. They're no longer concerned because they realize that there's no risk of that.
Yeah. That's the worst thing that can happen, is when your opponent starts to realize, I could go crazy here and completely eliminate all of these opposition forces in a day, and I don't have to worry about a counterstrike. I don't have to worry about retribution. And human nature being what it is, people become really bold when they no longer have any fear of you.
The other one, I'm pretty certain this has gone on before, and it's ongoing. Russia is not happy we sent a lot of weaponry to Ukraine. Russia is going to be sending weaponry to Venezuela. If they come in with that weaponry, you don't have to even use it to shut down the U.S. fleet. You start shooting ships going through the Panama Canal.
Yep.
You turn Panama, you do the Yemen strategy.
Yeah.
The price of insuring a trip through the Panama Canal goes up like 500-600%.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot less shipping through that. That hits Panama in the pocketbook. It's going to hit everybody in the pocketbook, because now you've got to sail around South America rather than going through Panama.
That's why it was always critical, and it never stopped being critical. It's just Americans forgot about the Panama Canal. Just because they forgot about it didn't mean that it changed from the most vital, strategically important point, in the middle of the Americas, over any other target that you could have there. Person who controls the Panama Canal would be able to limit transport of everything everywhere and control the supply of food, oil, and other resources. But for a good 20 or 30 years there, you barely heard anybody mention the Panama Canal after they gave it away. It wasn't until Trump got back in. Again, nothing changed other than the human mind and their perception of what's important. The Panama Canal has always been extremely important, and in the future, it could determine whether or not the American people starve to death from famine. So that's how serious it's become more important than it was originally.
I mean, that's something I think that actually concerns me. I'm generally the optimistic doomer, but maybe I've been talking to Ahnaf too much. I've started to see where, this could be worse than I imagined. One of the things is, the Romans thought nothing about the roads when they were riding like carts over them. They thought nothing about the aqueducts. The aqueducts are there, they bring us water. They didn't understand what, today we recognize those two things as two of the most tremendous achievements of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
One of our tremendous post-war achievements was we developed the best and largest trade routes worldwide the world has ever seen. There's never been a time where you could design a product in America, email the plans to China emails the plans to Vietnam to build your product. Then then they ship it from Vietnam to another port, ship it back to America. You've never seen that. Like every trade route, that depends on well-defended routes.
It's always funny how these declining, the declining society always forgets where this infrastructure came from. And they, just like now, you hear people say, well, the Roman road, the Appian Via, it made itself. And if it breaks down, it'll fix itself, as long as I can remember it's been there. And, they say the same thing about the aqueducts and everything else. The aqueduct will fix itself if you wait long enough. They didn't, though. And people didn't have any clean drinking water. and what drinking water they had was so polluted with lead, probably better if they died of dehydration than to drink it. So these things don't fix themselves. They didn't come out of thin air. And if you ain't been fixing them, when they break, you won't know how to fix them. That's the thing. From
Yes, sir.
generation to
That's
generation.
exactly what happened to Rome. They knew
Yeah.
long by the time they, the population of Rome started declining. So it's like, okay, we don't really need that aqueduct that's not working. Okay, it's declines
Bingo.
more. We don't need that aqueduct either. Oh, wait.
Right.
One of the problems they started running into is in its natural state, when you don't have the aqueducts bringing that water in, a lot of that land turns into swamp. And when you get
Oh, yeah.
swamps, you get malaria.
There you go.
And it was like that
Bingo.
started becoming a problem. I mean, the way I put it, at its heyday, Rome was about 1.5 million people. By the time the Roman
Bingo.
Empire ended, it was about 25,000.
Bingo,
Quite
bingo,
a
And
bit.
most of those were like squatters just walking through the field. Hey, I need to
Yeah.
I need a farm. Well, why don't you grow it in that old rock there? I think they called it the Colosseum or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of depopulation and these other topics, Sir Malcolm has an interesting thread. I'm just going to read this out to you, right? All right. So he's quoting one of these like Swedish people, and these Swedish people are like, oh, Greta Thunberg, she's been detained by Israel for like trying to sail food and medical supplies into Gaza. Fuck her. I wish she gets sodomized in Israeli jail. And okay, so Sir Malcolm responds as follows. Okay. The thing about many so-called nationalists in the Western world is that their entire universe consists of them sitting in the cuckold chair. Swedes will jizz their pants at the thought of swarthy Mizrahim Jews raping and killing Greta Thunberg. Such is their hollow nationalism. There was an incident recently where a guy from Iran, who is an MP for the Sweden Democrats, secretly photographed a Swedish woman wearing a keffiyeh and made a huge deal about how women dress like terrorists, quote unquote. A Swedish nationalist is someone who will stick up for the Iranian, but not the Swede. Okay. A Swedish nationalist is someone who will say that all Swedes who don't support Israel should be exiled or killed and demographically replaced by non-Swedes with the correct values. Given that Indians are the most pro-Israeli people on the planet today, the way to quote unquote save Sweden is clear.
I mean, I
don't take these people seriously for this reason. I don't take these because they call themselves nationalists, but what they really are is they were promised the life of a yuppie. They didn't get it. And so they pretend to be like these, oh my gosh, I'm a racist, I'm this, I'm that. We are gonna do things to you that have never been done before. We're gonna fucking kill you. Meanwhile, the guy doesn't have any actual real power, right? He's some idiot in his mom's basement yelling loudly these profanities, right? No courtesy whatsoever, no etiquette whatsoever. And then what he does is he's just a cuckold. He's a cuckold for the Jews, right? And he's like, oh, this needs to be good and that needs to be good. It's all for their Jewish overlords. And I'm like, okay, so if you're not people, if you're not a person, if you're not a free choosing individual and all these other things, why the fuck does it matter that Indians and Africans are replacing you? Why does it matter? Right? You're a bunch of cattle and you got replaced by real people with real views. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, give Israel some credit. Like Greater Israel is just around the corner. We can't take Gaza. We took 800 meters of Lebanon for a few weeks.
After 7 months. Yeah, after
I
7
mean,
months.
it's like, but we're going to take Lebanon, all of Syria, and chunks of Egypt and chunks of Iraq to defend our country. Oh, yes, I forgot. We're also going to take Jordan.
Yeah. That by the way, Sir Kenaz, that's what the nationalists, the so-called I'm an American patriot, MAGA this, MAGA that, and then I'm a nationalist for Britain first, America first. They're all a bunch of cuckolds for Israel. And they actually believe that stuff. They're like, any day now the Muslim invader will be soundly defeated by us in our homeland, and the evil Muslims will be defeated by the Israelis in the Holy Land, and Greater Israel will be formed. That's what they believe in. Right? If you interact with them, they're going to tell you a bunch of lies. But once you do some basic logical reasoning and assessment, and you poke holes through their narrative, and you look at what the implications of their worldview actually are, you figure this stuff out very, very quickly. Right? And so I've just gone on a tear recently, and I just go after them without mercy now. Like, without pity, I just attack them over and over again. Because, like, that's what they deserve, man. Like, they don't deserve any Like, oh, please feel bad for us for losing our culture and our values and our religion. No, man, I'm not gonna feel sorry for you, right?
You
You're a
gave them
slave. You're a
away.
good. You gave them
Gave
away.
them
You're
away.
good goy.
Yeah,
You're the goyim. Like when the Israelis call you goyim, right? They're not entirely wrong. You
not
behave like
entirely
goyim.
wrong.
They're not entirely wrong, man. They're not entirely wrong.
No honest man is going to say they have it wrong because
Yeah.
based on the way that they act, um, they seem to be like farm animals more than anything else. They seem to be farm animals. That's the word
Yeah.
in Hebrew. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
to agree. I'm sorry if it's unpleasant, but yeah, a lot of the population of the West, they've gone
Yeah.
soft in the head. And if it wasn't Jewish interest groups exploiting them, would have been
Yeah.
somebody else. Because either
It would
way,
be it would be
they've
like
gone soft in the
Qataris.
head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It would be like the Indians, it would be the Qataris. It would be like
Yeah,
when a carcass, like Sir Cleveland, when a carcass is being feasted upon, we
that's
don't
it.
look at the vulture. Yeah, like when
Yeah,
a carcass is being feasted upon, we don't look at
yeah,
a vulture and go, "Oh my gosh, the vulture is so strong. We are so weak." No, man,
right.
you gave up a long time ago. You
Yeah,
pretend to be a carcass. You're somebody else's cockhold. You're their
yeah,
bitch, right? You talk a lot. You know what's really funny, right? All this fake outrage about, the quote unquote Muslim rape gangs and whatever, right? In Britain or whatever. Okay, so like a white girl right now, regardless of what you think about her, maybe you think her political views are awful, maybe you think they're good, I don't care. But a white girl right now is in Israeli jail, notorious for like rapists and murderers and the usual shit from like the Israeli side of the captors, and you're like, yeah, this is what she deserves, fuck her, fuck greatness and it's like, buddy, I can see your fake spiel from a mile away. You don't actually care about white people. You don't care about white culture and all this other crap. You want a LARP and a cosplay to cling on to because, again, you didn't get your yuppie lifestyle, right? And now that you have the catabolic collapse happening in the military realm, in the political realm, in the economic realm, you got nothing else left. And that's all you got, man. All you got is the cosplay and the LARP. And you got this, like, I'm going to do things here that have never been done before. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk gets assassinated like what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks have passed, nothing has happened,
yeah.
right? Nothing has happened.
That's given way to nothing but cosplay and LARPing. The death of
Yeah,
Charlie Kirk. Everybody has put on their best costume and finest acting clothes, and they're all taking turns on the stage pretending to feel grief. Listen, uh, if you'd really cared about Charlie Kirk, you would have expressed it in very different ways than giving public speeches. And see his widow laughing and grinning on stage. It's really not appropriate at all. I thought within a week of it happening, Western people are so out of touch with reality, they can't even really feel grief. Even that is a kind of a stage production where they pretend to have emotions they don't have. And I'm sorry to go on. I
no
really
worries, no
feel
worries.
my discovery about Lactobacillus reuteri, and a lot of other
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
have discovered it. The feeling that you are looking at a bunch of actors who don't have real emotions is grounded in hard science.
Oh
So
yeah, oh yeah.
the people around me now for, a good 60 years about have acted like I'm a bit of a dag for always acting like I actually believe this stuff or really care about it, really care about the US, really care about what I'm doing. People have always felt, he's a bit naff, that guy. I think he really believes this stuff. I
Hmm. Hmm.
have. And it's probably because I'm biologically different. That gut
Yeah.
feeling, that instinct that you get in your gut that these people
Hmm.
are acting is backed by hard science. They are acting. They don't have real emotions. They don't feel real grief. They don't feel sad. They didn't really appreciate Charlie Kirk when he was around, and they don't appreciate him now that he's gone. I would say
They despised him,
they
like Sir Cleveland,
despised
like
him.
many
Yeah,
of them, like especially these actors that you're talking about, many of them like, oh, Charlie Kirk, he's a civic nationalist, he's this, he's that, he's too
yeah,
milquetoast. Fuck this guy, right? And then now suddenly, I sent you something on the Substack messenger thing, but like
yeah.
there's this idiot named Billionaire Psycho, and he writes these like long useless essays where like he tries to justify everything Trump is doing, and I just like I don't know if he's gonna keep it on. Maybe he's gonna delete it. I don't care. I restacked his post, right? Where like he's like, oh my gosh, Trump is the God Emperor, and you idiots, you don't know anything. Trust the plan, bros. And here's how I responded to it. This is about 13 hours ago. Okay. You keep telling yourself this is winning, that some rebirth has arrived, but look around you. Nothing has changed except the slogans. The
Nothing's
factories aren't
changed.
humming.
Yep.
The mines aren't opening. The rust is still spreading across bridges that no one will rebuild.
Yeah.
The tanks you love boasting about are older than you are, and the boys sent to fight in them are dying in wars you were promised would end. Trump mutters that Ukraine can win back everything magically, even while admitting behind closed doors that they cannot, and yet the weapons keep flowing, and the funerals and military accidents, quote unquote, keep coming, and you keep insisting that this is part of the plan. It's not strength, nor is it revival. It's the same exhaustion painted over with a new shade of cheap rhetoric. Every broken promise is twisted into evidence of progress, every apparent failure rebranded as a clever move, every delay called strategy because the alternative, i.e., admitting collapse, is too unbearable for you to face. Tariffs slapped on like magic talismans, deportations promised like an eternal drumbeat but never arriving, investment surges, quote unquote, that exist only in press releases and muttered from the tongues of rich oil sheikhs. None of it touches the reality of your life, but you repeat it anyway because to stop repeating it would mean silence, and silence would mean staring directly at the abyss. You call this winning, but it is only inertia dressed up as destiny. A civilization that can no longer distinguish between motion and progress convinces itself that optics are enough, that bravado will keep the walls from crumbling. You chant that the golden age has returned, but the chant sounds more like a dirge, the voice of a people who know that they're sinking but refuse to say it aloud. You insist you are feasting, when in truth you are choking, clutching at reeds in the black water and calling the taste of mud a banquet. So yeah, that was my attempt at lampoon.
Pretty good. I like that enough.
Yeah.
It was good.
But you summed it up because, yeah, I saw it. You don't realize things are better than ever. We're rebuilding America's manufacturing center. Okay. Where are
I think
the
Ahnaf
factories?
writes, he writes really good prose on this stuff, and it's more effective, the prose, than if he simply stated out loud what he's saying.
Yeah.
His prose really comes across. That's like, I think that is
Sir Kenaz is better at this
Squad
than me.
there.
Sir Kenaz is better at me. Sir Kenaz is more because he's the
He is.
optimistic doomer. Sir
Yeah.
Kenaz is better at me because he just gives you the facts. Like he wrote that that essay about the politics of desire, right? And he just gives you the facts. He's like, okay, well, this is what happened in this year. This is what happened in that year. But like, no, Sir Kenaz, you were saying something about the factories and shit. Please go on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're rebuilding the American Manufacturing Center. Okay, so show me where we got more manufacturing jobs now. Oh, wait, we have less
contraction,
fewer manufacturing jobs.
That's the reality.
Okay, we're building more new factories. Oh, we're not building new factories. We're having to take factories offline because we can no longer run them. We don't
Sir
have
Kenaz, but don't worry. Oh, but Sir Kenaz, don't worry. The farmers are doing better. Oh, wait, what was that?
The farmers aren't doing better.
Not doing better.
It's just like, you can look at a lump of shit and convince yourself it's a chocolate cake, but that doesn't mean you're not going to notice when you eat it.
Yeah.
Although these guys would just say maybe it needs a little more sugar.
Yeah. Put in a bit more caramel, basically.
I feel that the emotional content that is really the most important aspect of human existence, the woman who, despite her parents driving her to the abortion clinic, her boyfriend telling her he wants her to get it, and everyone around her telling her it's reasonable to take care of your future, to abort your child, I think the critical moment at which the woman says, I'm not going through with it. I'm not going to kill my own baby. I'm not going to do it. I don't care if it's irrational or unreasonable. There is a bond between me and my unborn child. I refuse to kill them. I love them already. They haven't even been born yet. When that scales tip one way or another, that is a nation breaker. And people without real love and real love of children, real love of their spouses, real love of their society, and you can pass all the legislation you want. Donald Trump can sign all the executive orders he wants. What is missing is that moment when the person instinctively decides on what's life-preserving and what is good. And as you said, if they love white people so much, why have they aborted 120 million? So we had a population to replace the old one. It's gone now. The idea that, Trump's going to sign a bunch of executive orders and things in a hurry, and he'll fix all of that. I don't think so. The love is really missing. The love is missing. That's the most critical thing.
Bingo, bingo. And here's the thing: it's like you can pretend and do this like online tough guy thing, but people are gonna notice that your actions and your words don't match. Like,
Yeah,
we are gonna do things to you that have never been done before. The storm has been unleashed, buddy.
yeah,
Your guy Charlie Kirk, he bled out to death in front of his wife and kids, in
yeah,
front of hundreds of students, right? It's political assassination, right? If
yeah.
you were an actual dude who were gonna quote unquote do something, you wouldn't be yelling loudly, right?
No,
You just have a bunch of your boys do the deed, quote unquote, and then, they would call the police and be like, look, I
yeah,
massacred this many people and here I am, come and pick me up. I'm not going
yeah.
to resist arrest. I just did it, right? And why did I do it? Hey, this is the reason I did it. It's just reprisal and revenge. So that's how you'd be behaving. You'd
The
not be
truth about
behaving like,
Antifa
yeah,
is that Antifa
yeah,
acts, they set
yeah,
fire to a city, they shoot the black business owner trying to escape his own burning building, they
yeah.
reduce neighborhoods to rubble. And you know what? The conservative whites who claim that they're going to put an end to this madness, do they ride back? No, they go online and
Yeah.
complain about it. That's why you know they're not having any real effect in the real world.
Oh no, oh no. It's all fucking like, and this is the thing. It's like you can only have that pretense for so long, right?
Yeah,
People are gonna notice this, man. Like people
yeah,
notice when you talk a big game, beat your chest, and you don't do anything. You know, when Reagan said peace through strength, you know what the inverse of that is? It's war through weakness. Like you've just told all the lefties, all the nihilists, all the psychos that I'm gonna talk a big game. I'm actually not gonna do anything. Hey man, you wanna unleash your psychos on more of our people? Go on right ahead. We're just gonna make more strongly worded condemnations. We'll do
yeah,
all this shit. Meanwhile, you guys can go ham on us. Like that's what you're signaling, man. Like,
yeah,
and this is why you never bluff something that you're not gonna do, right? The best thing they could have done is they should have remained silent. They shouldn't have made all these threats against lefties or whatever. They should have
yeah.
just done the deed a few days later. And then they'd be like, oh, we're so sorry about that. Oh, it's a tragedy. Who could have done this? Oh my gosh, we don't know a right wing guy did this or whatever. That's how they should have comported themselves, but they didn't, right? And now they're going to get more and more of these attacks. Like, I'm 100,000% sure that in the next several weeks and months, more and more like GOP, right wing, whatever fucking words you want to use, they're going to get attacked more and more because they've shown this fundamental weakness of not doing anything.
Yeah. I went to a really good speech in Australia at a defense consortium. I was invited. I still hadn't been paid by this company, and I thought maybe if I go, they'll pay me afterwards. But there was one guy that gave a really good speech in Australian, and it was different. The other crap, I just went in one ear and out the other. But this guy, I was really listening to what he was saying. I was thinking they need to put a general like this in charge of the Australian military. I don't think he was very high ranking. He said, one of the critical things in the modern warfare era is logistics and intel that controls all this technology, right? And he said, at its root, the good logistics, the good response, and the good intel at its deepest level is driven by the human need to win because they care about the outcome. The subtle decisions that they make in their design and their hardware and everything they do is because they have a visceral, atavistic desire to win for some reason. And the best reason, he said, is you love your country. You don't want to lose. And he said, if you take that away, no matter what high-tech hardware you think you have or don't have, without that driving force of that human emotion behind it, nothing you do will ever come to anything. You will be defeated by vastly inferior forces with far less finances to draw upon, using cheap toys that, a child could have thrown together, because the real intent, the love of your nation is missing behind it. That you say, hey, we did a drill with this crap and it doesn't work. I love my country. I'm not going to combat with this crap. We're going to do a drill again until this stuff works the way it's supposed to. And then
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't get things like the Bradley fighting vehicle, right? They knew it
Yeah.
didn't work. They were given tons more money to fix it. And again,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's kind of limp-wristed and unmotivated, and they run a million more quality processing drills and performance tests, and they still don't fix it because the real love of their country and the anger that they were paying all this money and not getting any result, that was missing in the people who were involved. And today, the
Oh
Bradley
yeah.
fighting vehicle, officially listed as a piece of military hardware is a joke. And it's a joke. No one took responsibility for its failure. Nobody said, I love my country. I'm not going to permit this. At that critical moment, they didn't put their foot down and say, no, I don't care what the problem is. We're going to make that thing work. And in this sense, the logistics of all the enemies of the U.S. that controls all this new tech hardware, a lot of it we don't have, it's already superior to ours because the people behind it were strongly motivated to make it work. They cared about something. But your cosmopolitan, disconcerted, kind of a citizen of the world attitude that most of the United States has, it's not enough to win at anything. You're going to lose at whatever you go into, no matter how much money you have. I'm sorry to go on, but I think it's an important point. The U.S. cannot recover from the love, the deficit of love and loyalty and feeling that people have for their country. They can't spend their way out of that. That's a big, big problem.
Yeah, I saw something during the Trump speech. There's this Canadian left-wing journalist who's complaining, Donald Trump is telling these people, these generals, that they have to follow his orders and that dissent is the enemy. I'm like, okay, when a soldier gets a direct lawful order and refuses to follow it, he is the enemy.
Yeah.
That's, it's like, there's nothing unlawful about saying people are attacking federal buildings. We are sending in troops to protect these federal buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, Eisenhower did it in in Arkansas.
Of course, because you have to sometimes. But even now we have these people saying well, what made Trump the big boss? Yeah, he's the chief executive. Do they really have to bring you in and have a speech where he tells you that you should be doing your job? And he has to tell them, this is our mission. We're the Department of War now. We fight wars. Act like a soldier. Don't sit around bitching like Mark Milley and telling us that you're going to stay in contact with the Red Chinese. Just the fact that Trump and Hegseth had to even have that conversation with the chief generals of the United States tells you, man, this country is in bad shape. I don't know. Do these generals even read their standing orders? Do they know you're a soldier? You always obey the chief executive. You don't do critique and talk to the press about how you'd rather run the army. It is real degeneracy, end of terminal madness of the end times, declining civilization. It really is.
I mean, imagine a general in 1940 saying well, I know we've told to get ready for war with Germany. I've been in touch with the German people and I've reassured them, we won't follow an order to go to Germany. Literally, well, I know that we've said we're doing this in Vietnam, but I went behind the president's back and started talking with the North Vietnamese forces and I assured them we're not going to stand in their way. That you are the enemy when you do that. Whether or not it's a good, whether or not you have good intentions isn't the point. The point is, a soldier is supposed to follow orders from a commanding officer, and the whole thing, unless there's some clear, this is a violation of the Geneva Convention.
Exactly.
I'm not going to round civilians up and massacre them.
Exactly.
On the other hand, if somebody throws a rock at an armed soldier, they can't be surprised when they catch a bullet in response.
Right. Hegseth was telling them from now on, we're going to do PT every day, everybody. And I was thinking, really, did you have to lay that law down? Yeah. The chief general of the army has to tell everybody you're going to exercise every day. We had PT twice a day when I was in the military. And then I had my own PT another 4 times a day. The idea that you have to tell people you're going to lose weight and I want everybody to do a jog or some work. I thought this nation is doomed. It really is.
Fat shamed to those generals.
Fat shamed.
And I'm like, fat shamed, your general ought to be ashamed of being a fat ass. And I say that as a fat ass myself, but I'm not a fat ass in the military.
Yeah. I'm sure if you were in the military, you would realize, hey, I got to lose weight. I can't stay a 4-star general and weigh 400 pounds.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thankfully I don't weigh that much, but I mean, it's like I still weigh much more than I ought to weigh if I were like
Right.
trying to rally troops.
I've been close before my weight started to come down, Kenaz, but when I was in the military, if I turned sideways, you couldn't see me. I was so thin. But even though, when my weight got up to 350 pounds at one point 2 years ago, I knew that's not safe. And I certainly am in no shape to serve in the military like that. But when that explanation has to come from the top that you are unfit for duty, and you have to tell that to the commanders of the army, I reckon you should start to pack your rice. I reckon this is
Mhm.
bad, bad shape, this military.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, I think there was a lot of it, why aren't these troops why aren't the generals protecting democracy by refusing to obey the commander in chief? I'm like, okay, so a
Yeah.
military coup is protecting democracy.
Yeah.
That's generally the
There's there,
excuse people give when they have a
yeah, but there's
military
not.
That
coup.
was Mark Milley.
Yeah, but
That was General Mark Milley. That was his argument. By
okay.
cooperating with the Red Chinese, I'm actually protecting democracy in the U.S.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. Like, there's not gonna be a military coup. I don't think there is gonna be one. Like, I was looking at the speech. It was a bunch of like, it felt like a Trump rally. They didn't actually announce anything important. The generals are there looking disinterested and bored, and they're like, "Why the fuck did we fly here to listen to this crap?" I just looked at that and went, "Bro, they're just gonna emigrate, man. They're gonna be like, all right, man, I'm a general, I'm this, I'm that, but this country's fucking collapsing. Get me the fuck out of here. What the fuck am I even fighting for? I'm not even fighting for anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the vibe I got. I didn't get the vibe of like, yes, yes, sir, Donald John Trump, sir. This is the new thing that we're gonna do. We're gonna fight for your thing, and like these liptards were saying, oh my gosh, Trump is gonna do this like new oath thing. So instead of doing the oath to the Constitution, they're gonna do an oath to Trump. I'm like, nah, man, that's not what's gonna happen, right? And these other guys, these Trump guys, they're like, yes, yes, Trump's gonna set everything right and whatever. I'm like, no, man, I saw that entire speech, right, once or twice. It was extremely boring, right? Again, we can go back to the beginning of the show. The equipment lacks spare parts for ground support and ground combat vehicles, 80% and 92%, right? Nothing's going to get built, right? You look at this entire damn thing, right? Whether it's the Brazilians and the Argentinians selling soybeans to China instead of American farmers doing so, you see manufacturing jobs contract. You see the Bureau of Labor Statistics going, all right, like the data we've been showing you for the last 2 years plus. Yeah, we got to revise down the job numbers by over 1 million for that. And it's like, America's in collapse, man. Nothing's going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
these generals, I guess a bunch of them might decide, hey man, I'm gonna cosplay and do this like Civil War thing or whatever, but even they're gonna leave. Like they're just gonna be like, get me and my family out of here, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're
Don't
talking
I
about 300
remember a
feet.
while ago,
Yeah.
they were having problems finding drill sergeants who could do a mile and a half in 20 minutes. Drill
Yeah, yeah.
sergeants. Now, as I understand it, and Sir Cleveland has personal experience of this, the drill
Yeah.
sergeant is the guy who's running backward while you're running at speed,
Yeah.
yelling at you and telling you to speed it the fuck up.
My drill sergeants were thin as a whip and could run a 6-minute mile. I might have been able to run a 5-minute mile myself, but I'd be one of the few people that could have beaten them in the mile. And the average drill sergeant was just a model of physical perfection. Some of them could run a 5-minute mile, and they were built like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And if you don't think you'd respect that guy, believe me, you would.
Well,
Dude's got a
Yeah,
600-pound
yeah.
bench press and can run a 5-minute mile. And that's just a drill sergeant that you would see frequently when you were going through basic training. You'd think, holy cow, that is one hell of a man right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like all of that's fine, but like actually I found this. Okay, all right. All right, this is Sir Malcolm yesterday. Okay. Quote, this is how MAGA is going to be remembered by the history books, by the way. All right, and then this is like an extract from a news article. I think it's actually an extract from the book. There's a book, it's called Collapse. Mikhail Gorbachev and the End of the Soviet Union, something like that. Okay, so Mikhail Gorbachev died on August the 31st, 2022, at the age of 91. He was by far the longest-lived Soviet leader. None of the others even made it to 80. The irony is that youth was once Gorbachev's chief attribute. When he came to power as a fresh-faced 54-year-old in 1985, he was supposed to bring rejuvenating energy to the Soviet system, freeing it from the shackles of the legendary Politburo gerontocracy. Gerontocracy. Yeah, I remember that word. Okay.
Yeah.
And he did, in the same way that an antidepressant sometimes gives a patient just enough additional energy to successfully commit suicide. The revulsion that greeted his name in the catastrophic 1990s was eventually succeeded by public indifference. That might have been the best he could have hoped for after those fateful 6 years. That's Trump's future, by the way. That's Trump's future right there. Like, as the country collapses to all these factors, which are convergent, politics, social, civic, military, domestic, all these other things, man, it's just gonna be like billionaire psycho and all these other retarded, dissident, right-wing, rightoids, whatever you want to call them. They're gonna be like, no, man, no, trust the plan. And then, meanwhile, the farmers are gonna keep going bankrupt. The manufacturing is still gonna get destroyed, right? America is going to get into disastrous wars with Venezuela and Iran. It's also predictable. It's also predictable. And it's like, but enough, look at this one little teensy-weensy statistic or number here. We can spin it a positive way and look at, okay, man, you want to do that? You can do that, right? But all I'm telling you is the overwhelming trend is negative to doomful, right? And you got to be honest about it. You can't just look at this go, yeah, man, trust the plan. Where's the plan trusting gotten you? Where's it gotten you, folks? Like, oh yeah, we're gonna vote. Okay, well, where has voting gotten you? Voting has gotten you to this mess, right? And that's the thing. It's like nothing's gonna happen, and like the drill sergeant, and all of that's fine, but like no one's interested in that stuff anymore. Like I saw the generals, like I said, and like even the military people, they're just like, get me out of here, man. I can't. I don't want to stay in this country as it collapses, and everyone goes like full like Balkans and Colombia mode on me and my loved ones, right? Because again, like if you're in a civil war, like use the jets against the evil lefties in this part of the country. Well, the evil lefties are going to track down your family and torture them with power tools on the other side of the country, right? You can't protect everyone at the same time. So, I mean, if Americans want the civil war and if they want all this bullshit, go on right ahead. But there's going to be a lot of emigration. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of Americans, particularly a lot of the terminally online Americans, think they want a war because the only thing they know about war is what they learned in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
That's, nobody, I've got friends, I've got a Peruvian acquaintance I've talked to, like he had family members killed by Sendero Luminoso. You don't want a civil war. You think you want it, you do not want a civil war.
I've always said it.
It's amazing. I'm kind of like, honestly, I'm amazed that I have to tell you this.
Yeah, they think war is the Avengers, the last movie, The Avengers. That's all they know about it. So, of course, they're saying what we could use right now is a civil war. Listen, you think you got problems now? You wait until you start a civil war, and then you'll find out what problems actually feel like.
Yeah,
because we don't have any now. People should seek a peaceful way of resolving their problems, because if you seek through aggression or violence, you're seeking the same failed strategy that nations have used when they've collapsed and fallen into decline. And if we have a civil war in this country, it'll just be putting an exclamation mark as an epilogue on the history of the United States. We won't bounce back from it.
I mean, if a civil war, one thing that's come to concern me that sort of brought me a little bit to lean more toward Team Ahnaf is our farming industry right now is largely industrialized and run by major corporations that require a lot, they require ready access to a lot of petroleum fertilizers, and they've torn apart our structure of family farms. Right. Now,
bingo.
Farming is not something, well, I find a piece of land, I buy a tractor, I put stuff on it, and, a year later I eat from the crops. That's not how farming works. There's a whole skill to being a farmer.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that skill, you starve in the winter.
That's complex systems. The decentralized unit is the most safest for all kinds of changes. The decentralized family farm is the one that survives economic upturns and downturns and continues producing. But the big centralized agribusinesses, they're the ones that collapse and give way to famine because, that's not something you can just say, "Oh, hey, can everybody start farming again?" No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's that. Now, a lot of that knowledge has already been lost.
it's
And it's
vanished.
kind of like, gee, we need
Yep.
the water again. Maybe we should repair that aqueduct. How you repair that aqueduct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All we know about it is that there's a faucet here and water used to come out. That's what we know.
Yeah,
Oh man.
and that's like,
Oh man.
I think that is a serious potential problem, and I think a lot of people haven't really paid attention to that.
Right.
We don't have a plan B in place for what happens when industrial farm, when what we call factory farming is no longer feasible.
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
there are so many stories. One of the big problems communes ran into in the 60s, we're going to go back to the land and we're going to create our own farms. And they discovered, well, it's a lot harder than we thought it was.
Yeah. Turns
Understatement
out
of the year,
that
Sir Kenneth. Oh
a lot
man.
of the people who that went to communes, they turned out to be heavy on easy answers. But when it actually came to running a commune, a lot of communes ended in violence with arguments over this or that, and they ended up with shotguns. And a lot of the communes in the 60s and 70s ended up, with horrific violence and people fighting one another. So they couldn't even get along, even out on the farm. It's supposed to be remote from the problems of urban areas. They had turned out to be the most violent of all. I don't think a lot of times the simplest solutions are the solution, but that won't stop people from offering them.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Like, people need to understand that lying about your capabilities, thumping your chest, and all this other stuff, it's not going to change the fundamental outcome, right?
Yeah,
And like Sir Malcolm used that analogy, right? You've got a plane crash, right? And it's kind of like two planes about to collide, or rather, a plane with like 500 people or so is about to perish, and it's the final few seconds, and people are praying for it to not happen, right? That's where America's at right now, right? And so right now, it's like, if you emigrate, what does that mean? It means you kick the door open and you fall out the aircraft, right? And you might break your bones and perish, or you might survive. But like people who think that, oh well, if I stay on this plane, I'm gonna survive. Like, bro, if America fragments, right? And I can, send you gentlemen my Wolfram Mathematica numbers. Like I basically go through like, okay, well, what does America look like if it's like 1,000 Balkans and 100 Colombias, right?
yeah.
Um, just the direct debts, just direct, you're looking at 27, 30 million. Just direct conventional debts, right? Over like the next 3, 4 decades of multiple civil wars, right? Just
Yeah,
27, 30, 35 million,
yeah.
right? And if we're talking about indirect debts and then loss of fertility rates due to civil war, emigration, all these other things, like what, 347 million people in 30 years' time, you can easily see the number climb down to like sub 200 million, even like somewhere in the 150, 180 million range. I mean,
The
like
the
the Canadians, they
Deagle
wanted,
report says 60 million. The Deagle
yeah,
report was predicting 60 million.
yeah. It did so, but like I'm making very conservative
Yeah,
calculations with regard to like, okay, well, enemies are not attacking America. And oh, by the way, it's just a multiple waves of civil war. So just domestic factors and just like, okay, well, conventional weapons are being used and all this other stuff. Okay, my friend, I mean, if all of that's true, then Canada's gonna get 100 million people by 2100. They're gonna get their wish, right? But it's gonna come in the worst possible way. They're gonna get their wish. Oh, but like it's just like the urban areas and what have you. Yeah, the rural areas would see only 15 to 20% of casualties. The urban areas would see 80, 85%, right?
yeah,
Um, but basically, yeah, 4 or 5 waves, shorter waves, 3 waves, larger waves. It would be an actual like a Soviet collapse happened, and then people say it was peaceful. It wasn't actually peaceful. Like you had these smaller Central Asian republics, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. They had all these like ethnic conflicts, these civil wars, and all these other things. You could argue that Russia was relatively peaceful, but that's not even true anymore because, like, the Ukraine war, the annexation of Crimea, these are all like aftershocks of like the Soviet implosion, right? America's not going to get an aftershock like, 4 or 5 decades later. America's going to get the effect immediately, right? And that's the point I try to make to people. It's like when they wish for an American Civil War, it's not going to be Franco's Spain or like, the first Civil War where one guy wears blue, the other guy wears gray. Oh, he's our enemy. If we just defeat our enemy, peace will reign and the country will become better. No, man, it's going to be you talking to your neighbor, somebody clocks you from behind and does a drive-by shooting, or it's like you in a parking lot at 10 p.m. at night and you get ambushed by 10 dudes with knives. Yeah, you got a firearm, but like, if 10 good dudes charge you, eventually one of them will stab you and get you, right? And so that's what it is. Like, that's what true civil war is. It's not like this fake romantic, and like Sir Kenaz was saying, he tries to talk people out of it, but they don't listen to it. But that's what it is. It's not like this fucking fake and gay romantic nonsense of like, oh my gosh, we defeat the leftist enemy and the country and the nation will heal. No, man, it's gonna be far worse than that. Far worse than that. It's gonna be you killing your dad, relative against relative, neighbor against neighbor, father against son, cousin against cousin. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. I feel like people under stress will realize that even the tentative relationships they thought they had with their neighbors will disintegrate pretty rapidly because there's no underlying Christian faith. There's no really deep religious faith. There's no real belief in Christianity, not just as a place you go on Sunday, but as a real heartfelt belief. There are more and more people who just mouth these words, but when times get hard, they will steal or kill from their neighbor, and they have none of these sentiments for real, None of them. They don't feel any of them. Still there, Kenaz?
Yeah, no, I'm there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the problems is America has already had social balkanization. We are, we already are a number of tribes all living together that
That's
worked
right.
for a while under Yugoslavia because there was a strong leader that was that could hold it together. When that stopped, basically the difference between a Serbian, a Croatian, and a Bosnian is their religion.
Yeah.
That's, that's it. You can't, but they wound up in a bloody war with each other, every side committing atrocities with the excuse that, well, the other side did it too.
Yeah. We bowl alone now. We're bowling alone. When families go to the bowling alley, it's not a community event where they talk to their neighbors or anybody else. They're lucky if they can even get the family there, 4 people whom they themselves may be at war with one another, and see if they can go an hour and bowl. And in most cases, people don't even bowl anymore. There are no shared communities. There is no shared interest. And there's no shared tradition and legacy, for better or worse. That disappeared and people act like they didn't care. They were convinced, so as long as I've got my iPhone, I'll be okay. No religion, no parents, no history, no nothing. But if I have the latest iPhone, I'm going to live. That's what's important. And everybody else, I don't know what's going to happen to them. So I reckon when times get hard along those fracture lines, they're just going to split completely, and it'll be a Hobbesian war of every man against every other man. I know it's depressing, but you can see even now the situation is set up for that to happen.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the thing where I've never seen America this close to like the fall of the government and the rise of a dictatorial government that winds up trying to control a bunch of smaller governments that form, and what at this point, what are they going to do? Drive their supply vehicles out for a war in West Virginia?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wait, we don't have any.
Yeah. Even when I was a former atheist, I recognized the strength of Christian faith to draw a lot of disparate people together and make them get over their differences and to love one another. for even though they may have not agreed on everything, they had that common bond. And when Scripture says all wisdom begins with the fear of God, the fear of God motivates you to tolerate your neighbor and to put up with them and to try to love them anyway, even if you have an argument with them. But people with no love of God and no fear of the Lord, I reckon when times get hard, they'll think, well, I'm looking out for number one, to hell with the rest of the United States. And they're going to discover that is a very poor survival strategy, long term, very poor.
Oh yeah. No, I'm with you completely on that. Like we just don't we're no we were never a homogenous nation, but we no longer have the glue that held us together. For all
Exactly,
the
that
problems
glue.
about the melting pot idea, people complain,
Yeah,
oh, well, a Jew came up with it, yada, yada, yada. I mean,
yeah,
the fact is, we used to identify as, dash Americans, Italian Americans, Irish Americans, Mexican Americans, but
yeah,
there was an America we could look to.
right.
There's not that America anymore.
Everybody now is a critic of the American experiment and its success. Everybody tries to distinguish themselves as superior because they sneer at America, even though their feet are planted there. They act like they're too good for it. They don't have anything good to say about it. But I reckon they're going to cry when it's gone. They're going to realize what they lost when it's too late to do anything about it then. You can't bring it back by not sneering or no longer treating it with contempt. And that's what a lot of right wing conservatives are doing now. They change their tone and all of a sudden they're like, we've got to get back to a basic respect for our institutions and all that. Yeah, that once lost, that doesn't come back easily. But, give it 500 years, we'll see. In the meanwhile, I think it's going to be rough.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that we, make America great again. I'm going to use the old Spengler term, second religiousness. That's basically what make America great again is bring America back to the boom years of the 50s and like the 50s
Yeah,
through the 70s.
yeah,
That's not
I'm a
coming. It's not.
75-year-old. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a 75-year-old grandpa. I'm gonna deadlift 700 pounds like I used to when I was 25 years old, and I used to be an Olympic athlete. That's literally what MAGA is.
yeah.
It's like,
They didn't raise their replacements. They thought of themselves as immortal. They'd always be here. And, America will always have a bunch of people with those traditions and culture in it. Even though I myself haven't had children, my wife and I split up, or I didn't even form a family. I just left my bastards to take care of themselves. No, you can't do that. You have to raise your replacement generation. If you stop caring about your replacements, you will be replaced by somebody else.
gentlemen, speaking of replacements, the world's longest bridge has been completed by the Chinese. What do you think the cost of it was?
Well, according to Malcolm Chayune, you could build 3 of them for the cost of a B-2 Spirit.
Yeah, $300 million for the entire bridge.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Tallest bridge in the world, open for traffic. Hang on a second. China's Huajing Grand Canyon Bridge. 3.5 years to build, cost $280 million. Height, 2,051 feet. So the bridge height is 2,051 feet. Length is 9,480 feet. So it's an engineering marvel, basically. The bridge, you can see the clouds moving across the bridge. Right?
300 million is like a consultancy fee in the U.S. That's what they get paid to do a study on what it would cost to build a bridge.
Yeah, they built a bridge, Sir Cleveland. They built a bridge, the world's highest bridge.
Yeah.
Over 2,000 feet high, right?
Wow.
I'll send you the picture of it, right? They built it, and I'm telling you right now what's going to happen. The Americans are going to say this bridge is fake. Oh my gosh, you know, it's made of cheap Chinese plastic. Oh my gosh, it's going to collapse any day now. That's all. They got envy, they got jealousy. All they got left, Sir Cleveland, is a bunch of this like bullshit. That's all they got because they don't build anything themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so let me actually send you the pictures. Hang on a second. It's got pictures. So sometimes, I can say stuff like, oh, well, it's 2,000 feet or whatever the fuck. But if I don't send you the pictures, you won't understand what I'm actually talking about. because pictures are worth 1,000 words. All right.
Ticket
So
sales to tourists for the opening weekend of the new bridge have already paid 1.6% of the cost.
yeah,
They also
that's
have
right.
waterfalls. Yeah, I mean, China is, I'm not saying China doesn't have problems. We had economic recessions and downturns during the point where we were when we were in the ascendancy, but this is being built by a culture at its ascendancy or its zenith.
Yeah.
They're building bridges we can't maintain.
Yeah.
So, Sir Cleveland, I've sent you 3
Wow.
pictures so far.
Yeah, I'm
This is
looking
the
at
final
it. Pretty
picture.
impressive. Pretty impressive.
This is the last picture. And by the way, this is why I said 2,051 feet above sea level. You don't
Right.
understand what I'm saying until you see the final picture.
Yeah.
That's the final picture right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a
Yeah.
view when you're driving over that bridge, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
we
Oh,
can't.
but Sir Cleveland, don't worry. China only produces cheap plastic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a towering achievement, literally a towering achievement. I mean, we
Yeah.
could not build
Americans
a
couldn't do
bridge
that.
like that. We're
Yeah.
having a hard time maintaining maintaining our existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just get somebody out here to fill in this pothole, we'd be doing good. It's like towns in Africa. All we ask is that somebody show up in the next 10 years to fix a pothole in the road. But a bridge that size, it's impossible to build in America. They couldn't do it.
They'd run into how long. I think they've spent they could build, because I believe they've spent. Let me just check this right here. How much has been spent on the California high-speed
Yeah,
rail?
I was just thinking of that as a good example. What do they
High-speed
spend on that?
rail costs to date. Let's see. Total cost is now estimated to be in the range of 89 to 128 billion. As of late 24 and early 2025, no high-speed rail has been laid down.
Yeah. But they got some
After
very
16
impressive.
years and roughly 15 billion spent. 15 billion, that's enough to build 50 of these bridges. They could build 50 bridges for what it's cost us to do the planning and the paperwork for one high-speed rail we haven't put up yet.
Right.
Yeah.
They got some really impressive PowerPoint presentations, though. Really good. PowerPoint presentation slideshow of how great it would be if it got built. They got those, plenty of those.
Yeah.
The price tag of the Shanghai Maglev, a high-speed rail, was believed to be 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could have bought 30 Maglevs for the cost of what we've spent so far before we've laid track down. They're expecting, when we lay track down, spoiler alert, we're never going to lay track down. It'll cost about 125 to estimates are 125 to 150 billion. So you can safely double those and you'll have an approximate cost of the low end.
I predicted.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a very simple. All right, so I'm gonna go to the AI and I'm gonna ask a very simple question. All right, estimate the entire cost of the Chinese high-speed train system. So we're talking about the 50,000 kilometers of high-speed rail that has been laid down over the past 25 years. What is the entire cost for that? So it's calculating. It's gonna take a while. But no, gentlemen, what do you think the entire cost is?
Let's see. They said, okay, in 2009, they spent 50 billion. Total construction cost of the high-speed rail system is around 300 billion. It's benefited the Chinese economy, according to the Paulson Institute, by a net $378 billion.
So far. That's right. But that's the thing with infrastructure. Infrastructure pays you dividends even many years and decades later.
Yeah.
Right. So they've already paid it back. If the number is 300, I haven't gotten the answer yet from the AI, but if the answer is 300 billion, then they're already up 78, 80 billion, and they've only like finished construction like a few years ago. So, there you go.
Yeah,
Like
21.
finalizing
Yeah,
Mhm.
21 million per kilometer. Let's see. So, with what we've spent so far on PowerPoint presentations, they could put 1,000 kilometers of high-speed rail up.
Yeah.
Good night,
Yeah,
everybody. Drive safely. Drive safely, everyone. Good night. That's the end. The end.
Yeah, this is just
All right, Sir
we're
Cleveland.
Yeah.
Sir Cleveland. 48,000. 48,000 kilometers of high-speed rail by the end of 2024 was laid down. By the end of 2025, an additional 2,600 is going to be laid down. Okay, Sir Cleveland. Sir Kenaz said 300 billion. What do you think the entire cost is?
Because of some things I've heard about Chinese labor, I'm going to say under 100 billion.
Okay, so if you use today's unit cost, if you do exchange rate, if you do everything, if you add in labor, so not just material cost, labor, everything, regulation, everything. So add up everything, government regulation, labor, fucking materials, factory, all that. The low range is 860 billion US dollars, and the high range is 1.06 trillion dollars. Basically, 1 year's worth of interest payments on the American debt is about 300 billion higher than that.
It's never going to happen. They'll never have high-speed rail in California. It's not going to happen.
No.
I'd just like to see them get that money back that they've wasted already. I wish they could do something to get the money back. It would bankrupt California if they got that money back. But as for actually completing the rail system, sorry, not going to happen in this lifetime. Won't happen.
Yeah. So for 50,000 kilometers, so they want to do 75, 80,000 kilometers by 2035. They're probably going to succeed. 50,600 kilometers of high-speed rail across nearly every major city, right? So we're talking about 400, 500, 600 kilometers an hour. These trains are moving.
Yeah.
So for all of that, maximum they spent $1.06 trillion. So there you go.
But they're not hiring LGBTQ laborers, not hiring LGBTQ contractors. So the Chinese have failed in that sense.
People are going to tell you enough, the train lines are built using Chinese plastic junk. That's what, like, Americans have nothing to show for. They got nothing left.
Yeah.
Country's collapsing. All they got is envy and jealousy. That's all they got left, man. Like when they say other people are envious and jealous, they're projecting their own emotions onto other people. That's all it's got, man. It is just hilarious.
Certain, if a war doesn't break out, if there is no war, China's going to naturally eclipse us as a world power, and they will have surpassed us. And I hope it's peaceful, because if a war breaks out, we're going to lose. And it's not the fault of any particular shortcoming of any individual American, but the government, our leaders, and the people that we voted for in general. We're just put us on a trajectory, a course for this over the past 50 years, and nobody thought maybe we need to show a little more keen judgment, a little more discipline, and a little more acuteness in recognizing the difference between what we say we're going to do and what happens. Just like the California high-speed rail, they're saying all these things, but where's the person in the middle who notices that, nothing's actually substantiated out of any of this. It's just talking. There's no rail line actually being built. And that's something that, between America and China, China says something and then does it. America says something and can't do anything. You can see who's going to win. Who's going to win that?
Oh yeah.
There's an economic competition between nations. They're going to win. They'll win peacefully, and nobody's ever going to say it was close. It's not close.
No, it wasn't close. And it's not close right now. I mean, China has already materially eclipsed America, right? The thing with America is that the dollar is being sold as we speak, and people are buying gold, right? That's why the gold price is going up, right? Enough, there's nothing better than the dollar. Dollar is the cleanest laundry sheet in a dirty laundry. I'm like, okay, but you're only talking about fiat currencies. You're not talking about gold and silver, right? And it's like, that's the last thing America's got for them, man. It's like, well, people want our dollar. Well, it's October 3rd, 2025. Come back in a year and say that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
America has
expecting
the
a
dollar.
really big dollar crash within the next year or two.
Well, you have to understand, Sir Kenaz. It could be in one of two ways, right? One thing that could happen is you could see the Dixie, the DXY index, crash down, giving you a weak dollar, or it could crash up, giving you a strong dollar, right? If it crashes up, right, what happens? Importers can import better, but exporters cannot export their stuff anymore, right? So, right now, I think the trade deficit has actually gone up. The tariffs haven't decreased the trade deficit. The trade deficit has gone up. So it's over $1 trillion or what have you. And Americans import more than they export, right? So if the dollar crashes down, right, and exporters are benefited, right, the dollar would become weaker. Purchasing power of the average American who's doing grocery shopping and these other things, it would go down, but America would get rid of its quote-unquote trade deficit, in which case you get one set of horrors unfold. The other set of horrors is if the opposite happens, right? In which case, like, okay, well, exporters are destroyed, importers are benefited, and so the trade deficit goes up not by a few hundred billion, but like, from 1 trillion it becomes 2 trillion or higher. Well, at that point, then you have interest under debt and these other things multiply. So there's no way out, right? You're damned if you go left, you're damned if you go right, right? And that's where America's at. Like, it's like, okay, well, enough. In the last 25 years, there have been 3 recessions: dot-com bubble, great financial crisis, 2007, 2008, dot-com bubble was 2001, and then we have the brief COVID recession. Okay, if you look at those 3 and you say, all right, for the 21st century, these 3 are going to be, quote unquote, the typical recession. So what happens during a typical recession? So Infonomics, I think his name is Robert, and a couple of these other guys, they ran the numbers. Basically, income tax and these other things go down during a recession. Expenses go up. A couple of these other things happen. Long story short, the deficit, which is currently at 2 point something trillion and rising per annum annualized, it would go up to ... Fill in the blanks, gentlemen. What do you think it would go up to?
What would it go up to? I'm at a blank here. I'm drawing a blank.
5.5 to 6 trillion. It would triple.
I can remember when the national debt clock in New York, when it went over $1 trillion,
Yeah.
people thought it was the end of the world. They would have been pretty terrified now to see what it's at. And always when the
I'm talking about the deficit, by the way. I'm talking about just the deficit. The deficit itself would be 5.5, 6 trillion in a typical recession.
the shortfall, how much would that be total owing? Do you know?
So basically, in that situation, you would see about 9 trillion, 9.5 to 10 trillion per annum with regard to incoming flows. So
Right.
not incoming flows, rather, but like 9.5, 10 trillion with regard to expenses. So interest on the debt and all these other things.
Yeah.
And incoming flows would be around 4 trillion or what have you. Right. So
Right.
that's how you would get the 6 trillion number. Basically, if you want to know what that looks like, interest on the debt then becomes like 2 trillion, 3 trillion. And it's almost at the point where it's about to eclipse the 4 trillion of incoming receipts, right? At that point, nothing works, because what that means is $1 of tax is coming in, and then it immediately gets destroyed. And then, nothing happens in the government because nobody gets paid. So basically, the current situation right now is for every $1 that comes in, 25 cents get immediately destroyed by the interest on the debt. And, oh, by the way, the remaining 75%, well, that's not actually how much America spends. America spends $2 for the 75 cents that are left, right? In this
Right.
situation, what you would have is, okay, you have roughly $1 coming in. Nearly 60 to 70 cents of it is immediately destroyed, maybe even higher. And then the remaining 30 cents or so that are left, well, that's not how much is being spent. Rather, $3 are being spent. So, by the way, folks, if you don't pay the military, right, they're not going to take your orders. Just letting you know ahead of time.
That's scary, isn't it? Because they're not taking orders now. Can you imagine if they're not getting paid? That could be bad.
Okay, the Air Force General Concern. Oh no, well, he's been promoted to Vice Chief of Staff. Never mind. I was saying, we're already starting to see you're starting to see resignations, but I mean, if you don't feel you can support the commander in chief, that's the honorable thing to do.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you have another one, a guy who essentially, for your response to Billionaire Psycho's brief reminder, just started out with okay, repeated the paragraph that he had stated, and then adds, it's just starting. Well, I agree with the last sentence, but not in the way you think.
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah, you pissed a lot of people off. No, only about 5 so far, but I'm sure you'll piss a lot more off before it's over.
Oh, I'm pissing a lot of people, man.
That's just you can't, you could sit here and say, it's the "this is fine" meme. It's the guy sitting in the burning house, and as it burns, he's sitting there drinking his coffee. You go, "This is fine."
I want to know, actually, does that guy even live in America? Or is he like a guy like Tommy Robinson? Because, Tommy Robinson, he pretends to be like a British patriot or whatever. But, most of the year, he lives in, Spain and Italy. Right? So he doesn't even live in the UK. So, is this guy like a fake and gay, retarded, rightoid idiot who doesn't even live in America, who's in Thailand or whatever? And he's like, I want to know that, actually. I want to know that. Because, he's talking about shit that's just not true. The jobs aren't coming back. The farmers are getting absolutely mauled to death. All this other shit is happening, right? Federal workers are being furloughed. All this other stuff. Enough, the revival, the restoration. They go, shut the fuck up, man. Shut the fuck up. Are you even an American at this point? Or are you just some fucking expat in Thailand? By the way, folks, when America goes broke and bankrupt, the multiple civil wars happen, and you got Americans stranded all across the world. You know what's going to happen to those Americans? Let's just say people are going to remember the fact that Americans love cheering dead women and babies as they're getting blown to bits by Israelis, right? So you're going to get the Israeli treatment, right? By the way, there's a hadith and Quranic verses with regard to, the end of days won't come until you fight the Jews. And even the rocks and the trees themselves tell the Muslim, oh believer, there's a Jew behind me, kill him, right? I mean, you Americans want to be best buddies with the Jews? All right, man. That's, your wish will be granted.
I think what I find funny is I've expected from the beginning you're going to have a Jewish population in Israel, even after it becomes Palestine. Most of them will be devoutly religious Jews like the Haredim, and they're going to get along just fine. They don't want a war. Right. They want to live in their own neighborhood and do their own thing. You pay the zakat, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bother us. We don't bother you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing, Sir Kenaz. I mean, this other group of people, not the Haredim, but these people who say, we're gonna get the Muslims and whatever the fuck, and we'll blow up women and kids. Why are the Americans supporting this stuff? Do they not know? You go to a theater, right? You go to a theater, you watch Act 1 of the play, then you watch Act 2, then you watch Act 3, and you're like, okay, we can see how the ending's gonna be, right? Do they not see this? Do they not understand that all of these things right now are saying, yeah, danger ahead, danger ahead. How about you stop live streaming a genocide? I mean, I don't know if you gents saw this, but there was that very brutal synagogue attack, and Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, they're just oh, this is awful, this is extremism. I'm like, bro, Israel, your best buddy, has been live streaming a genocide for the last 2 years or so. What did you expect was going to happen? You think people are going to watch that stuff and behave in a civilized, normal manner? No, right? And, it's a brutal attack, it's a tragic attack, but, you can't expect people to behave normally if atrocities are being committed 24/7 and being live streamed. What do you expect he's going to behave like? These people are retarded, man. These people are actually retarded. Like they actually believe that after America collapses, all these expats, American expats living in the Middle East, are going to be given safe passage out. They're not going to be given, bro. They're going to get hunted down like dogs and animals, man. Right? Because again, the Americans sided with the Israelis, right? And they sided with them and they said, these are our best friends. Yeah, they're just killing a bunch of black and brown Untermensch. They fucking deserved it. Oh, they're wearing a garbage bag over their heads. They fucking deserve it. They need to die. If you talk like that, man, you're going to be mowed down, right? And like, look, the oil sheikhs, they might be your best friend today. They might tell you stuff like, oh, you're our, like, what did you say, Sir Kenaz? They love using honeyed words. Wait till you see what they do. Wait till you see what they do when they realize, you know what? You're not like, the dehydrated camel anymore, who's like stronger than the strong horse. You're like an actually dying camel.
Yeah,
These people have no idea what's coming.
My brother. I remember that when I was with Palestinians. My brother. I only want what is best for you. Here, you should buy this. No, I mean,
buy this. Yeah,
I could see why Trump gets on really well with them because, like,
bro,
they pick up immediately. Yeah, the Trump loves flattery, so it's like they flatter him, and nobody does flattery like Arabs.
It's so retarded. Okay, so he goes to Qatar, right? He goes to Qatar and he signs a trade deal, and I think the trade deal is $3 trillion over like 10 years or some stupid number. Gentlemen, what is the GDP of Qatar? Anybody know?
GDP of Qatar.
What was these pop questions? I don't know.
218 billion. So in 3 years, they're going to give him. So in 3 years, they're going to give him like 600, five times their gross net domestic GDP.
I'm gonna give you. It is gonna be very boring, and I apologize for being boring. But like, okay, 240 billion. All right, 240 billion. Okay. How much does Qatar export in a year, and how much does it import?
Don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so export is about 130 billion. Import is about 30 billion. So $100 billion of exports. Okay. How much of the imports are from America?
Again.
Okay. The imports from America are less than 20%. All right, so now let's do some quick math. Okay, 30 billion. We're going to say 20% just for the hell of it. So right now, Qatar does $6 billion. So $6 billion of cash flow go to America. All right, so Kenaz, 6 billion times 10, what is that?
60 billion.
That one I got.
Okay, okay. So Kenaz is 60 billion.
500 times.
Okay. Sir Kenaz. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Is 60 billion greater than, less than, or equal to $3 trillion over 10 years?
60 billion, 600 billion. So they're going to increase their imports from the United States 5 times. 500% more. In fact, increase them to more than their total. So they're basically saying we will buy everything from the United States.
By the way. Okay. By the way, Sir Kenaz, Trump signed this deal. This is the level of America's leadership. This is the level. The oil sheikh scams him like a fucking fool at the street stall. He scams him, and he's like, yeah, man, we're going to give you $3 trillion of business over 10 years. What is that, 300 billion a year? Oh, don't worry. 6 billion? Yeah, we're going to increase that by 50-fold. Don't worry, my brother Trump. Sir Kenaz, you got to do the Arab oil sheikh voice. You got to do that again and do it in that voice.
Oh, my brother, you are like a brother to me. Of course I will send you $3 trillion.
Wow, it's uncanny. It's like they're in the room with us.
No, I mean, I remember like it was the big difference between them is like, if you didn't want to buy something from an Israeli, he'd get real. What? You don't like this? We're a Palestinian. No, you do not understand, my brother. This is the best in Jerusalem. It was like they're both trying to screw you, but one applies Vaseline first.
Right. That's just called good salesmanship. That's all that is.
Yeah. It's just funny, man. It's just funny because like all these plan trusters, they give me these numbers, and I'm like, where the fuck do you actually believe this bullshit, man? Like, did you actually sit down for 15 minutes, actually look at the economy of Qatar and do the math of like what it means for Qatar to send $3 trillion worth of like imports to like America? Like, did you even do the math for that? Like, holy shit, these people are retarded. Oh my god.
I didn't know
Well,
that,
what he
Ahnaf. I learned
did,
something today. I thought that had been a good deal for the United States, but the way you just phrased it doesn't
Whenever
sound so
you
good at all.
well, but
whenever you hear
that's
something like
exactly
this,
it, Sir Cleveland. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. He got to say, I'm bringing $3 trillion in exports to the United States from a wealthy oil kingdom. And his entire base, none of whom could find Qatar on a map if it was written there.
Yeah.
You could have a big arrow pointing to Qatar, and they'd say, well, it's somewhere around here.
It's in the sand desert. Sand
Yeah.
desert.
oh man.
Yeah, ain't that the place that got Mecca and Medina?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
basically what they would say. But the thing is, right? The thing is, I don't look, I don't expect people to be experts in geography, right? What I expect them to do is, look, if you're making all these big claims about $3 trillion are going to show up over 10 years, you got to show me the receipts, man. Because, like, when you show me a receipt for $6 billion of exports to America presently, and you're like, all this other amazing shit's going to happen, I'm like, shut the fuck up, man. Like, you don't even know what you're talking about, right? And so, like, I figured out, like, Trump signed a deal with the Saudis, right? Saudi Arabia has a much bigger economy than Qatar, right? And it was during Trump's first term, and it was like, what, $600 billion over, 10 years or some stupid number. By the way, gents, if you want to know how much of the $600 billion actually made it to America, you're more than welcome to check it out, right? You can also check out the export-import numbers from Saudi Arabia.
But see, this is the difference between the people on Eurabiamania and the Trump's fan base. We actually stop and look at numbers. There's people here, $3 trillion. Wow, that's a lot of money. And Trump said it, so it's got to be true. So he really does make the art of the deal. It's like, the art of the deal for the other guy, but
yeah. I can give you the numbers right now, right? Okay, so if you want to know how much the Saudis actually invested in America, all right, economy of Saudi Arabia. All right, gentlemen, what is the GDP of Saudi Arabia?
Dang, more of these questions. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Luckily, I got a computer in front of me. 1.24 trillion.
Yeah, that's correct. There we go. All right. I mean, Sir Kenaz can cheat if he wants to, but that's fine. It's fine. You can cheat. All right. Okay. So they have export numbers, current account. Okay. So let's say last year or the year before, total exports of Saudi Arabia.
Stuff up.
You can look it up. It's fine. You can look it up.
I'm guessing a lot of it is like oil, but.
Yeah. So they have so Saudi Arabia runs a surplus. Their exports in 2023 was 370 billion. Their imports was 290 something billion. Okay, so they have a surplus of $80 billion that comes into their coffers. All right, importing countries, because again, importing countries get the cash flow. All right, Sir Kenaz, who is the main importer of Saudi Arabia? This is not a numbers question, by the way. This is a very common sense question. Who is the main importer of Saudi Arabia?
I would guess Asia.
China. China imports 21%
big one.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be that.
What is America? Okay. By the way, what is America at? This is like last year or the year before.
300 million people.
Well, America imports 7%. So 7% of 2.9 billion, right?
Yeah.
So America is actually number 3 on the list. 21% of the imports are China, 7.6% is UAE, so Dubai, 7.3% is United States. This thing is saying 5.7% India. I think after this year it's going to increase. But anyhow, okay, gentlemen, 2.9 billion is 1%, so 7.3 billion is 21 billion. All right, 21 billion times 10. What is that number?
210 billion.
Is 210 billion? There we go. All right. Is 210 billion smaller than, equal to, or greater than 600 billion?
That's about a third. It's a little more than a third. Let's say 35%.
You lost me.
You see why I laughed?
So Qatar's GDP is 213 billion.
Yeah.
But the United States is going to begin exporting more of their goods than Qatar
Yeah.
exports to them.
So Qatar's GDP is 240 billion, right?
Right.
6 billion of the money, 6 billion of the money is used to buy American products as imports.
Right.
So the cash
Sounds like
flow to
carrier.
America, yeah, so cash flow to America is 6 billion. And
Yeah.
Trump says in 10 years it's going to be 3 trillion.
Right.
So it's going to go from 6 billion to 300 billion a year.
That's basically what Trump is saying. That's what he's implying, right? I mean, obviously he doesn't have the brain for this stuff, but that's what he's implying. Yes, yes.
Right. Okay.
And
I think I
the
follow
thing,
that.
But it was kayfabe. It's more from the kayfabe presidency. Look at the great deal I've signed. No, he knows.
yeah, the great deal, the great deal he signed with Saudi Arabia, where like it's nowhere near 600 billion. It's closer. And by the way, I'm being very generous. Like this number, 21 point something billion, that's only for last year. It was probably lower than that, right? So I'm saying at most, like, so Trump was president once. It's been several years, 7-8 years or what have you, since he signed the deal, I guess. Maybe 5, 6, 7 years. In that time, how much has America gotten from Saudi Arabia? At most 200 billion. And I'm going to say there's 3-4 years left on that trade deal. So, oil sheikh uses the honey words on you. You believe everything. You sell it to your fucking base like a bunch of rubes and imbeciles, right? America gets $200 billion maximum. And what's the shortfall? Yes, 400 billion that the fucking oil sheikh didn't give you. So this is America. Welcome to America, folks. Getting scammed by oil sheikhs.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing with Trump is his main goal, his first goal is to get attention. He's a complete attention whore. His second goal is to gain personal power. He knows he can say whatever he wants, and he has a fan base that will believe him. He could tell, you see all the jokes about like Trump saying liberals shouldn't drink their own piss, and then your next picture you see is like some girl with blue hair drinking a bottle of piss. He also knows there are people that like would hear that and they'd be drinking the piss. I mean, or they'd be like, well, hey, I'm a real American. I don't drink my own piss.
Yeah.
By the way, gentlemen, what is the average time it takes? Let's say you sign a new trade deal with another country. What is the average time it takes for that trade deal to be implemented? Do you know?
I guess 2 to 5 years.
18 months actually. So it's a bit
Okay.
less than that. So he's saying we're gonna get $3 trillion and it's gonna be 10 years. But what he's really saying is 12 years, right? After implementation. America's not gonna exist in 12 years, folks. All right, wake up. You see this crap and you're like, what is happening? What is happening?
Kenaz,
man?
I've enjoyed this, but I was hoping if I could tap out at noon. Is that all right?
That's good
Oh,
with
no
me.
worries, no worries.
No, that is no.
No
It's
worries.
been an excellent show. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah. I got
No problem
bombarded by
whatsoever.
so many statistics by Ahnaf, my head's swimming. I think I gotta go lay
Yeah.
down. I'm still thinking about the deal where we got ripped off by Qatar because that was publicized so widely. I thought, no, we didn't come out of that one bad.
No.
And well,
It
okay, folks. On that note, let's call it a day. And I have a special message for Billionaire Psycho and all his friends.
Your soul is mine.